July the 21st, 2020. Guys, it's a late update on the tropical situation that we're looking at both in the Gulf of Mexico and out in the Atlantic. And I want to go over a couple of things that I'm looking at and kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. We'll wait and see. But first, let's look at this section here. This is disturbance number 1, 5-day forecast, 40% chance of development. It's basically saying the same thing that it has been saying. The difference is, notice how quickly it moved out of the Florida Straits. Guys, see where it's at now in very warm waters, moving very quickly. And the path of this, as far as the way the cone was first put into place, it was more along the Texas and Mexico border, right in here. And now they've got it kind of centered coming into central Texas. But what the cone means is not the size of the storm. It means that the center could travel anywhere from here to here. And then the storm would be around that particular path. Notice that it's skirting southern Louisiana, but is centralized, or the center of it is pointed at Texas. A couple things are happening. And I think it may turn more into Louisiana as far as direct hit. Now, we don't know how strong it will become, but it looks like, because of the amount of rotation at the surface and the heat that's in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, you at least could have a tropical storm on your hands, but it looks like it's going to turn more north into Louisiana. Now, out into the Atlantic, we now have a tropical depression. And guys, I think this will be way before daylight a tropical storm, just if you look at the images. But it's saying tropical depression 7. Maximum sustained winds are 30 knots or 35 miles an hour. Central pressure is 1,009 millibars. It is moving west 7 knots or 8 miles an hour. And we'll look at the spaghetti model on it, but now we're getting more compact as far as those models. We were having the Canadian model moving all the way up into the top, coming into Puerto Rico. The naval model coming into South America here. But now those have both kind of moved and put it coming into what's called the Hurricane Alley, more central. Now, let's look at both of these, but again, we now have Tropical Storm 7. And let me correct a mistake I made in the video earlier. We've been watching a lot of storms, and I said that Hannah would be first, and then we would be dealing with Elias. But Gonzalo will be the first named storm, and that more than likely will be here in the Atlantic. But when you see these satellite images of this system here, now that it's moved out of the straits, it's in open, very hot water, then it's going to be a tight race. But 7 out here, Tropical Storm 7, Tropical Depression 7, excuse me, is rotating very good and starting to wind up. You could see that earlier. But let's take a look at a couple of things here. This is the satellite directly above the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what we're looking at. And you can see as the sun is setting into the west, it's switching to infrared in the right of the image. A couple of things I want to point out. Again, it's cleared the Florida Straits. It's in the opening here. If you look very closely, in this area, guys, right there, you'll see rotation at the surface. What's going to determine how fast it strengthens is how fast storms wrap around the center. There it is. You could actually speed this video up if you wanted to, and you could see the rotation very clearly, and it's following exactly where the X is. Now, what's happening, again, the first projections that we saw had this system moving in as far as the center of the cone along the Texas and Mexico border. Let me back this up just a second. But what we're seeing is everything is starting to move north into Louisiana. Notice the sky's coming off the Gulf, not only at the surface, but even at the higher levels. The wind shear is starting to move north, and there's a wind coming out of the west or the left of your screen, and all of this is going to work to do this. follow as I take this out and let the video continue to play. Notice where all the motion is. And so we saw that cone, and it skirted, the new orange cone skirted the coast of Louisiana and Texas. But I think this is going to move further back to the east because of the way that we're seeing all of this weather set up. Again, check this out. As it's moving in here, it's going to be caught up at the surface here and at the higher levels where you're seeing this wind shear coming out of off the southern Texas and Mexico border. Louisiana, keep your eyes on this system. Another thing that factors into this, we've seen it for years, is that these storms, that when they get into the Gulf of Mexico and start to strengthen, they love to take a right turn the closer they get to shore. So all of these factors are kind of adding up to a turn into the Louisiana coast. Now, more than likely, guys, again, look at this system that's rotating here. It's just now getting its feet off the surface of both the south tip of Florida and the island of Cuba. Everything now is in very warm water. We're going to have to pay very close attention to this. Start checking the National Hurricane Center at bpearthwatch.com. For years, you can just scroll down on the left. There will be hurricanes right there. You come here, check out these radars. There's also the Fox Hurricane Center link there that will give you more of the spaghetti patterns and things like that. But this thing, again, is starting to wind up very tightly. The only thing that will prevent it from getting very strong is that it does not wrap these thunderstorms around it. But there's so much heat at the surface that is trying to be released. We're going to have to pay very close attention. I want to point out one other thing about this turn, because in the video this morning, it was just west of the tip of Florida, but in the Florida Strait. Now it's out here. But it has also already started that turn. Notice where the center of rotation is here, guys. It's not moving straight towards Texas. It's already started moving a little more to the north, and it's moving west by northwest. But everything's pointing to a move into the Louisiana coast at this point. So we're watching it. Let's look at a couple of the spaghetti models. Now, this report came out 30 minutes ago. It's 8 p.m. Central. This came out at 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast, which would have been 7:30 here, guys. And in the video this morning, you had the Canadian model very close to coming into San Juan area, that model in the green, and the Navy model, which is now moved up also, was coming into South America. So these are starting to tighten up in these models. Now, notice this was updated at 5 p.m. this afternoon. Right now we have a tropical depression. But guys, the satellite imaging shows very clear rotation. They're saying by 2 a.m. tonight that we'll have a tropical storm. See this? Moving at 40 miles an hour. Then going in by Thursday at 2 a.m., 50 mile per hour storm. Friday 2 a.m., a 65 mile per hour storm. Moving into Friday at 2 p.m., the same speed. Notice it slows down as it starts to move across the islands here. It's down to 60 and 50 miles an hour by Sunday. We will see, because it's moving into, again, very hot waters. And what we will see is and we've seen it many times, is now if you notice, it is at 35 mile per hour sustained winds, west-northwest at 8 miles an hour. A lot of times as it gets into warmer water, this speed will go up to like 12 or 14 miles an hour, and that will change these timestamps and locations. Now, going to the wide Atlantic satellite imaging, guys. A couple things that are interesting here. First of all, this is a storm that we're watching move into the Gulf, very strong at this point. Here, we're seeing tropical depression number 7. Before daylight, possibly a tropical storm. And again, Gonzalo would be that name. Now, there's something interesting about the way it's this storm and another low pressure area is interacting with this dust storm off of Africa. What you're seeing, this layer of clouds here, we talked about it in a couple of videos ago, that there was another system moving off of Africa. that was more than likely would become entangled in this dust storm, and that's what we're seeing. So the tropical storm or depression number 7 here is below the dust storm. Plus, what is happening, just as a dust storm will inhibit a hurricane because the sand and the dust is absorbing the moisture that the hurricane needs to strengthen, this low pressure system is eating into this dust storm. See this cloud layer here? And notice it as I go back to the video in motion. And so it's kind of like blocking some of the lower level dust. It's absorbing it. It's eating this system up, which is very large and very strong. And I've seen them come off the coast of Africa this large and end up being a very powerful hurricane when it hit the shore. But right now, there's a battle between the dust cloud from Sahara and this very large low pressure here. And that's going to keep it off the back of tropical depression number 7. Let's play this forward. Notice here, large area low pressure moving off the African coast, pulling into the dust storm. So it's kind of like, I mentioned this before, one system will fall on the sword, and then other systems are in the clear. But we saw a gap a couple of days ago in one of the videos. I said there's a gap in the dust layer that's moving off the African coast. And this is where we're going to see the problems. And that's exactly what has happened. Here's our next tropical storm again. Gonzalo will be this one, and more than likely the system in the Gulf, if it goes to tropical storm, will be Hannah. Just making sure I've got that corrected. Again, the system is moving very fast in the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of low-level strength on it. We can pay very close attention to it, guys, because it's moving fast enough. It will be on you before you know it. We're watching it. You watch it. It's heads up. Be safe.